So
Wait,
hi for everyone, whoever's, huh?
wait, wait.
Anything, Shairi? Are you coming in? Yeah, tell me
Yeah,
what.
just wait. I'll tell you when to go.
Okay. Oh, I saw over there live on YouTube, so I started.
You can do it's ready.
I can go?
Yeah.
Okay. So for whoever's watching live on YouTube or whoever's going to be watching this today, we have gathered here to speak about entrepreneurship and mental health. And of course, this is a very important topic considering the times because, of course, the workspace is changing and how humans are working, it's changing. And slowly, what we are seeing that people are going out to express themselves in life and finding they're walking the path of an artist or an entrepreneur, freelancers rather. So because the nature of work is changing, and we have seen that the surge of entrepreneurs has actually reached a very high level as of now, even in India. So this important topic, especially at the times of a pandemic, is very important because the pandemic has actually shaken the business world, the financial world, and a lot of entrepreneurs are facing the flack of it. So today we have with us Dr. Shondev Mitro and Sunita Kumar. Dr. Shondev Mitro, he has done his master's in philosophy, uh, MPhil in clinical psychology, and he has done his PhD in psychology. He is currently an associate professor in the Department of
Assistant professor.
Psychology, assistant professor in the Department of Psychology, University of Calcutta, and he is a practicing consultant clinical psychologist. He has over a decade of experience in teaching and actively working in the field of mental health. Uh, on the other hand, we have Sunita Kumar. Hi, ma'am. Welcome to the talk. She is, of course, a chef and the co-owner of multi-award-winning restaurant called Dana in Canberra, Australia. And this outlet has been performing very well since 2015. Uh, Sunita Kumar also has 23 years of experience in, wait for it, academia, telecom, hospitality, FMCG, banking and financial industries in customer service, marketing, training, and direct sales. That's quite a list. And is a trained hospitality professional and is living her passion every day. Sunita Kumar, by the way, she just got awarded the 2020 Chamberlain's Canberra Businesswoman of the Year by CWBA and Rubik 3. So that's a very brief uh, introduction to our guests. Of course, we'll be knowing more about them as we start talking today. Uh, so, sir, I'm going to directly just dive into the conversation, and I'm going to ask you that we have different personality types, A, B, and C. Can you briefly explain to us what are the differences between these personalities and who maybe amongst them has more of a higher chance to make it as an entrepreneur? What are the pros and cons of all of these personality types?
Well, first, I would like to mention over here that we should not look into this concept of personality types to start off with. Okay. You go to different sites and you would see that this is type A, this is type B, this is type C, type D. Let's not go into that because uh, currently human brain, the understanding about human brain and human personality is such that we can go for a lot of development. There can be a lot of development, a huge amount of development. So maybe an introvert can, so to say, the person who has less social interactions can be doing something on the app, right, which reaches the persons. So that can be good. And on the other hand, another person connects with a lot of other persons, and on the basis of that does something for does something which is again can be very good. So let's not try to limit ourselves to the concept of this type, that type. Let's just think that any individual with a certain degree of intelligence and the desire can be able to change and can has the ability to develop into a successful entrepreneur.
Okay, okay, that's so basically, so what you're saying is, uh, entrepreneurship as we know it, is building this financial stability around a wonderful idea, right? So what you're saying is anyone with, doesn't matter on their personality type, anyone with an idea can work in their own way to actually
Absolutely.
create this environment, this stability, financial stability, and make it as an entrepreneur. But sir, how
Absolutely.
important do you think is uh, okay? What is the difference between psychology and positive psychology, if there is any? And how important do you think, sir, is the knowledge of psychology and positive psychology for an entrepreneur who is trying to make it? For an aspiring entrepreneur, let's say, sir, this entrepreneur is 18 years old, for example, right? And
Mhm.
he or she is trying to become an entrepreneur. How important is it for him or her to read psychology and positive psychology?
Um, well, psychology is a subject which has two aspects, so to say. One is the academic aspect, okay, where you will get all the theories. And on the other hand, there is the experiential aspect where you do it yourself, you do it in life, okay. So over there, the academic psychology, leave it for the persons who are working in the academia, right? And often those persons can have difficulties in understanding the experiential aspects as well. Trust me, psychoanalysts, they themselves fight amongst in their own sets, and it goes on like that. On the other hand, this experiential aspect is the ability to know yourself and know the other person. For that, you need to experience life, you need to live. And some tidbits of psychology, some things over here and there, that can definitely help. But then it doesn't require you to do a lot of reading. It's certain ideas might be important, but then, and regarding your question about psychology and positive psychology, you can say that psychology is the overall umbrella term, and positive psychology is a field of it. It's one field. Now, positive psychology primarily focuses on concepts like happiness, then concepts like, gratitude, concepts like resilience. Whereas in psychology, all these concepts are important, but they also focus on managerial skills from the organizational behavior background, or on topics like anxiety, depression from the clinical background. So psychology is the mother subject. Positive psychology is one aspect of it. To do something in life, you really need to know different aspects of psychology. That's okay, but you don't need to go too much into academia. It's more about life
So,
than about reading.
sir, would it be wrong to put it across like this, that entrepreneurs need positive psychology more than the entire umbrella of psychology?
Uh, I would say that the entrepreneurs, they need a little bit of positive psychology, a little bit of organizational behavior, understanding of organizational behavior, a little bit of understanding about emotions in human beings, and then go ahead with it. So not
Okay,
just
okay,
one aspect would be important. A balanced amongst quite a few aspects could be important for them.
okay, sir. So, drawing from where we were talking about the positive psychology and everything, ma'am, what really inspired you to actually go out all the way to Canberra and start your business there, start this awesome restaurant, which is, going on winning awards, and you're getting business of the year. So what inspired you? Where was the spark? What started everything?
So I think to tell you where I am today, I need to take you back to where I was. All right, and that
Yeah, ma'am. Willing to do
you
that. Let's do.
introduced me with my background back in India as to where I started. I started as a chef, worked for about a year and a half in the industry in India, but then I realized that I was probably not at the right space at the right time. And then I went into different corporate roles spanning about 18, 19 years, which allowed me to get experience in different aspects of working in an organization, right from customer service up to service excellence and training and organizational development, and so many other roles that I have played in my corporate career. So when we arrived in Australia, the uh, the dream was to start something which we are really passionate about, both my husband and I. We both trained chefs, and we came to Australia with the dream that one day we would start something on our own. And that was the ambition with which we arrived. But after having arrived, as a new migrant in a new country, you have to do what it takes to, uh, survive, if I can use that word, especially in a country like Australia, where it doesn't matter what experience you've come with. What matters is what you do with it, because it's not. So to give you an example, I was at a very, very senior management position back in India. When I left that job and I came to Australia, I started from an office executive position in a academic setup. So I would say that's the first message in terms of, if you're talking about leaving a life behind, which was very, very successful in terms of a position, etc. Moving to Australia as a new migrant meant that that was the past. We had to start from scratch. But we always came with that idea that one day we will start something on our own. So after about 2 years of uh, finding ourselves a job and settling in a new country, that was when I started thinking about how do I live my dream, which is to do something in the food business. So I think for me, it was always important that we do something which was connected back to our passion, food, takes back to the roots of India. So when we came here, we looked around the uh, industry over here in terms of hospitality and restaurant business. I like to call it like the Xerox copy template of restaurants. So there is a standard typical menu that you would find in most Indian restaurants across Australia, not just in Canberra. So you'll have a butter chicken, a Madras chicken, a vindaloo, or a Rogan Josh, and that was how Indian food was showcased. And we wanted to break that stereotype. We said, you know what, there's so much richness in our country and culture, which most people don't get to experience in Australia. And that's where the dream to start a food business that was Indian, yet very, very distinct from what was happening in the market. So I think that's where my journey began. So wanted to present the richness of the Indian culture and Indian cuisine to the Australian market.
So, ma'am, you're putting this emphasis on passion. You just used the word that, this was my passion.
Yeah.
How do you really know what is passion? Like, for example, a 18-year-old is watching you talk. How would you define passion to this person?
So I knew I wanted to be a chef when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
Okay, so that was something which was, I knew that I wanted to make a profession out of food. But circumstances in India were such that I didn't feel comfortable pursuing that as a full-time career in India at that point in time. I'm talking 27, 28 years ago. So even though I had about a year and a half of experience in the industry, I was passionate about it, but the environment did not make me feel comfortable enough to pursue it at that point in time. So it was a conscious decision to move away from what I know was my passion into what became uh, the need of the hour, so to speak. So taking up a job, making a life, taking care of your family, financial aspects. I loved each and every job that I did. There's no two ways on it. Uh, as a person, whether it was as a call center executive or growing up to the national head of service excellence for a telecom company, that journey of 18 years, every single job that I did did, I loved. And if my heart wasn't in it, then I knew it was not for me. So every time I changed my job in about 5 or 6 years, it was because I'd come to a point where I felt I was not growing. I was not happy doing what I was doing. It became so mundane and so routine that I felt there was nothing challenging me. So that's when each of those, twists and turns in our life take you to different experiences, I would say. But food was always something I was always passionate about. And when we came to Australia, it was like, whatever happens, we have to break out of the 9 to 5 mold and get into doing what we really love doing, which is food. So
So I think,
each person will find their happy space, if I have to call it that, uh, based on what drives them, what makes them happy. It's a very cliched saying, if you love what you do, you don't have to work for a day. And that's so true. Uh, Otherwise, it's just a job.
hey, oh, sorry, I'm very sorry. The dog's in. No, no, it's fine, it's fine. I'm sorry. So, yeah, I think we have all heard about the fact that, wherever heart is. But then I think what I'll take back from your answer is the thing that you said, that I was not really growing in it. There were no challenges in it for me. So, yeah, I think having growth as well, if I'm growing every day, if I can go to bed thinking that, okay, today I have done something, I've faced few challenges, grown a little bit before tomorrow starts. So I think that is a very feel good factor. I think that is where the happiness comes from, I guess. Uh, so anyway, thank you, ma'am. Dr. Mitra, I'm going to come back to you. So I was reading this article. Yeah, so I was reading this article on Forbes, and in this article, I found out that 72% of entrepreneurs, they face mental health challenges. Now, whether we talk about it or we don't talk about it, that is secondary. But there is data that 72% of entrepreneurs, they're facing mental health challenges. But when you compare this number against non-entrepreneurs, the percentage is just 48. Now, that is quite a huge gap, but it doesn't stop there. Now, even their family members, when we're coming to family members, the number is 23% of entrepreneurs have family members who face, mental health challenges. Whereas when we come to the number for non-entrepreneurs, the number is 16%. So, sir, in the light of this data, for example, that we know it's out there, it's happening. In the light of these events, how important do you think is having a support community for young entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs?
Ognimpo, can you just give me 5 to 10 minutes time so that I can give you some concepts? I'll just be sharing a PPT, though it's a very cliche kind of a thing, which is mostly used in academics. But I think if you give me 5 to 10 minutes time, I think we'll be able to delve into deeper about this conversation. Is that okay with you?
Yes, yes. I hope if all of us are ready to dive a little bit deeper, let's go, sir. Let's go in. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll just, it's not a very big presentation and I won't go into the details as well. So what I'm just trying to say is over here that the balance is very important. Ma'am was also saying this. I'll just, you have the main concept is the ability to regulate. You're talking about the mental health risks. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. It is essential to foresee the potential risk. I think over here, we'll come back to this maybe. Ma'am was saying that she was looking for opportunities of growth, but then there were risks as well. So I am sure that she might have foreseen certain degrees of risk. Then to do the right thing, you need to know to inhibit the impulsive actions. That is, as she mentioned, that she did not probably just jump into it. She first saw that okay, so what is available? What the menu looks like in other Indian restaurants? So it is essential to choose the option with the right amount of risk involved. I think she did a market survey and then went ahead. It was not just her passion. She saw it very well that, okay, so there is scope.
Yes.
And high risk situations also call for high demands, physically, temporally, financially. I think if we have time, then we can ask her regarding how, at times, physically challenging these things were, how much time it took, and financially, what were the experiences when, she might have felt strained as well.
Of course.
But the point she was mentioning is the readiness to engage with challenges is the key to perseverance. You have to be ready to face the challenges. It's not just, okay, so I want to be in the safe space. I have a 9 to 5 job. It gives me money, so I'll stay there. No, the readiness to engage in challenges. So
Yes.
now she was mentioning about passion. I'll come to that a little bit later maybe. See, the basic emotions are fear, anger, sadness, and joy. I'm not going to into detail because these are known to each of us, and all emotions are important, and complex emotions arise in challenging situations. Often contradictory emotions are expected, so we have to accept fear, anger, sadness, and joy at the same time. For example, I'm sure in her experience, she might have had situations where she was a bit afraid, a bit angry with the past situations or the present situations. She was maybe sad to, do a little bit of shift or something of that sort, but then also the joy of doing something new. So anything, for example, while doing a change, while going for a change, you can have a lot of emotions. What generally people do is people feel afraid of emotions. The
Yes.
key is not to be afraid of emotions. Emotions are normal, so let's accept it. And we can, let's not question that how can I be sad and happy at the same time. No, we can be. We have very complex brains, so we can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Now this is another point we don't talk about it, but rest is essential.
Mhm.
Sympathetic nervous system helps to mobilize energy. It helps you to run, but the parasympathetic one helps to restore energy. That is, you need to develop that energy, right? And restoration is essential for perseverance in the long run. If I don't have enough in store, that is, say, even financially, okay, so I am going on earning, but I have to have a backup as well. So restoration in everything is essential. It prevents
Yes.
burnout and gives scope for development of new connections in the brain. Say, when you are, maybe when ma'am is talking, maybe while she was doing her work, certain ideas might have come up in her mind. But when at the end of the day, maybe she was just sitting with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, maybe she was able to think more clearly. I'd like to have ma'am's perspective on these. And so these are the new connections of thoughts, which are actually neural networks, which grow. And that can grow when we are a bit calm. And this learning is essential for growth. We were talking about learning and growth. And sleep is essential for learning. If you do not have a good night's sleep, your learning, your anxiety regulation would not be there. And we could see
Mhm.
how bright ma'am looks when she's talking with a smile on her face. Now, all of that, you need rest in order to go ahead. So this is what I would like
Very
to
true, sir.
focus on.
Yes. Very
Yes.
true.
So contradictory needs are present in each of us. We want to grow, but we also need comfort. We have to accept that we have both the needs and both are useful. And let's accept the dominance of one at a given point. Maybe at this point of time, I'm just, solidifying, I'm working on my savings. And at another time, I'm looking for growth. And we have to be flexible enough to lament over the needs not met, because if we are not mindful about what we have not achieved, then we would not understand where we want to go to. But here, lamenting does not mean that just sticking to the internet or just thinking and ruminating. You have to stick to your basics. You have to stick to your routine and fulfill the work demands. And regarding relationships, they're often sources of stress. I think ma'am would also agree with this. But this is also a source for solace. We get stressed by relationships, but also they are uh, our the go-to situation. So the key point is stay connected to a variety of people, some who are similar to you, some who are different than you, the ones who admire you and the ones you admire. And support others, seek support, but don't demand it. Don't say that why did this person not support me. Okay, it's okay to ask for support, but then again, if the person is unable to support or is not considerate enough, then it's okay. And regarding the concept from positive psychology, you have to practice gratitude for whatever you have got. You can be thankful. Find your meaning. As she was mentioning, she found this meaning in food, in maybe as a chef, as creating new things. And I'm sure that she works on her strengths. And maybe we have to also accept our weaknesses. Now, these things are all easier said than done. So, what I'm trying to say over here is, just a second. Yeah. What I'm trying to say here, over here is the fact that, you know, huh. So the fact is, why does entrepreneurs have mental health problems? Most probably because A, they are not really comfortable with their complex emotions coming from one single stimulation, right? You're looking at a challenge, you're afraid of it, but you also are attracted towards it. So this is a complex situation. Then sometimes people would think that, okay, is it okay for me to take rest? But then even some degree of rest is essential. Am I being taking too much of risk? Okay, if I'm taking the risk, I have to be committed. And in some times, I also need to give myself the time that, okay, so for the time being, for a few weeks, I will relax. So if this balance, now obviously, when you are into a habitual pattern as a, say, a 9 to 5 worker or a person engaged in a even a private company where the work demands are very high, there also the work demands come from without. It's given to you. The entrepreneurs have to seek it from themselves. They have to create their challenges. So this is definitely a very challenging situation, and many a times we are either taking too much of challenges or you're afraid of challenges. The right dose, the right degree, the right balance is probably essential. And I would request you to ask ma'am to maybe share her reflections on these, because I think these can hold a key regarding the mental health aspects of entrepreneurship.
You're
With the
very right.
balance.
Sorry, you're
Sorry,
very
ma'am,
right,
you go,
Doctor.
please. No, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you started by saying it's cliched, but I think if it's on self-reflection, if you look at it, uh, if you have to define an entrepreneur in 6 or 7 qualities of an entrepreneur, what would it be? So I would start, of course, with the idea and the passion, right? But idea and passion is just the beginning. That's the first step. You have an idea or a passion and you want to share it with the world. But there are so many other aspects of bringing that idea into reality. And for that, I think at a deep down human level, uh, there's perseverance, there is risk taking, ability to take a risk, absorb that risk. Uh, as Dr. Mitra said, finding the balance, whether it is taking the right amount of rest, and it's a catch 22, because as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, where no matter which part of the world you're in and no matter what type of a business you own, uh, you don't have a downtime because your mind is constantly working 24/7. It's like I literally sleep with a diary next to me because suddenly at 3 in the morning, I'll come up with an idea and then, you jot it down so that it's not lost and you come back to it. But you're on, your mind is constantly on. So even though you get a day of physical rest, maybe on a Sunday, mind is constantly working. Even on a Sunday, your mind, you can't shut your mind and say, I'm not, no matter how hard you try, saying, I'm not going to talk about work, I'm not going to think about work. Uh, Especially if you're a creative person like I am. I'm a very creative person. So the ideas keep coming. Now, how much of that idea you will actually execute and make it a reality is a different matter altogether. But the ideas are constant. And like, can we do this to improve something? Can we introduce something like this? Uh, and as an entrepreneur, it's not just about your passion. Your passion is one aspect of it, but to run a successful business, you have to wear so many hats. You need to think like a business manager, you need to be an HR person, you need to be a finance person, you need to do your core job. So if it's an IT entrepreneur, that person needs to know probably software development. But it's not that he or she is only going to do software development. He has to go and sell that product in the market. He has So there are so many hats that you wear as an entrepreneur. Your passion is there in the center of it, but then there are so many other aspects of you that even if you don't have those experiences, you will build on those experiences. I'm a first-time entrepreneur in my entire family. So is my husband. There's no background. We don't come from a family business, a business of families. So everything, first of all, it was a new country. You had to learn everything all over again, starting from the culture, the rules and regulation, the law of the land, and it's so much more regulated than India was. It's been 9 years since we left India. I'm sure there's been progress made, but to start a business in a country like Australia, there's so many rules, legislations that you need to know of. So you're constantly learning, but your mind is never off because you've got to, an entrepreneur is always thinking not of today, but what next, what next, what
What
next.
next?
So that's a thing. So that means you're a planner, you're planning for the future. At the same time, you're an executor because you have to get the work done today, because if you want tomorrow to happen, your today needs to be strong, right? So you can't slack off today thinking I'm planning for tomorrow, so it's all good. Everything works together, and then you have to constantly look back. Okay, what did I do which worked well? What did I do that didn't work well? So you learn from your mistakes. So it's an evolving process as an entrepreneur. And I think uh, self-belief, nobody is going to believe in your idea as much as you can believe in your idea. Okay, so
Yes.
every single entrepreneur starts with the belief that I'm doing something which is important to change the world. And that change the world doesn't mean I'm going to change the globe, but it's your immediate world. I mean, uh, so it could be an entrepreneur who believes that uh, getting together Dr. Mitra and Sunita Kumar from Australia will change the world for somebody. So you have worn the entrepreneur's hat in doing this exercise, right? So uh, self belief is all, it's all that there is. And then of course, don't be afraid to ask for help. What's the worst that can happen? Somebody will say no. Move on, which is exactly what Dr. Mitra said.
Yes,
So you
yes.
have to be able to, uh, I think a good entrepreneur is a person who believes in their own abilities, but is not afraid to say, I don't know. Who's not afraid
Yes.
to say, you know what, I need help here. I cannot do this on my own. Somebody who is willing to reach out to people. And sometimes, you'll have a good response. Sometimes you will say, you'll get a roadblock, but then you find a way around the roadblock. And I think Indians are the biggest jugadu people in the world, right? So they find a way, whatever happens.
Yeah, totally.
So I think 6 or 7 things, if I have to really talk about an entrepreneur, it's not just an idea. It's an idea with the power that you can, believe that you can execute it. You can plan it, you can execute it, and you have to keep at it. If one idea doesn't work, and a good entrepreneur is not going to sit and brood over that. He say, okay, it didn't
Yeah.
work. Let's move on. What's next?
Right.
So uh, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, a good entrepreneur is always looking at something new from a different angle and different perspective. And but being an entrepreneur, your resilience is got to be very, very high. You have to be resilient. You cannot, uh, you know, you cannot brood over your failures for a very long time. If you do, then you lose the momentum, and there will be failures.
Ma'am, I'd like to ask you something. How do you master your anxiety? If you have any, I'm sure you must be having, because you look like a human being. So human beings definitely have must have anxieties. And how do you manage that?
Okay, so I think for every human being, faith is an important matter. Now, faith is not, it's not about religion, it's not about spirituality, it's about a belief that there is something larger than you, there's something bigger than you. And that's where the gratitude comes in. So, for me as a person, as an individual, I have this strong faith that whatever happens, happens for the best. There is a reason and a purpose behind it. Every morning starts with the gratitude, which is exactly what you were talking about. It's like, thank you for just giving me this day today, and what am I going to make out of it? You have two choices. You can either make that day the best day of your life, or you can make it the worst day of your life. There will be so many things that's going to come through the day. And for me, it's not just a business owner. Like, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, daughter-in-law, I'm a daughter to somebody. So it's like you've got so many balls in the air, you're juggling all the time, right? And where do you find the balance? If you think you're perfect, I think that's doomsday, in my personal opinion. We are all perfectly imperfect people, so our imperfections is what makes us human. And if you stop uh, to say that, I'm perfect at this, and that means you are saying that I don't have anything more to aspire to, or anything new to go towards. So anxieties are there. Why do anxieties come? Again, fear of failure. So to give you an example, when we started our business 5 years ago, I was working on a full-time job. So 9 to 5, I was in another job. And after that, I would come to the restaurant and work till 10:30, 11 in the night. So my day would start at 9 o'clock in the morning, but it would end 11:30, 12, sometimes 1 o'clock in the night. So you're doing two jobs. Why am I doing two jobs? Because the business is not at a scale where I can support my family with it. So that's reality, right? I have to pay mortgage, I have to pay the bills, I have to feed my kids. And it's a husband and wife, it's a family business. So it's got its own different set of complexities as, so a lot of entrepreneurs have, it's a side hustle. What I mean by side hustle is, and a lot of business owners, especially in this country, I've seen it, they start with it as a side hustle, because till it comes to a stage where you can say, yes, unless you get a very kind business investor who's putting the money behind you, and you don't have to worry about paying yourself a salary. The realities of life is that you still have to feed yourself and your family, right? So 5 years ago, when I started, it was having a full-time job and doing this on the side for both me and my husband. And then after a year, when we moved to we started from a shipping container, so like a food truck, really. So that's how we started. Why? Because as I said, the market was in a state where, other than those 5 or 6 known Indian food, nobody knew anything else. So for me to break into the market and say, this is Kolkata's kathi roll, nobody would understand it, right? Or a Bombay pav bhaji, nobody would understand it. So as an entrepreneur, we took that stand that that's the kind of food we will start with, because it was a food truck. So in a food truck, you start with street food. So I had kati rolls from Kolkata because I've lived there. We had Bombay pav bhaji, and those were the kind of foods we grew up with. And then when we came to the restaurant, which is like a proper brick and mortar setup, it had its own new set of challenges. From being a 3-member team, we went to becoming a 16-member team. That growth within 12 months for a person who's not from a business background is overwhelming. It's like, from just paying ourselves when we could to having to pay somebody who's your employee is a different aspect of an entrepreneurship as a business owner. So
Yeah.
each stage of your business progress will give you some new learnings. So as an entrepreneur, for me, it was just having that faith, that uh, I have a great idea. It's going to be a hard slog. It's not, and that's one thing we keep telling ourselves, my husband and I, we keep saying we are here for the marathon. It's not a 100-meter sprint, you know. If you're a
Yeah.
true business owner, if you're a true entrepreneur, yes, you have your immediate today, next week, pay the rent, pay the salaries, and all of those issues. But then you're always thinking ahead of the future. And if you have to do, if you have to be in this business for the long run, next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you can't burn yourself out. And you have to find that balance. So you know, for me, spirituality is what ticks me. I am an energy healer myself. So I have my spiritual practices that kind of keep me sane.
Yeah.
Meditation helps. And then making time for yourself and especially if, I'm not saying that men don't have those challenges, but as a woman entrepreneur, you have added complexities in your life because you have a family to take care of and nurture, and you can't only be a business person. You have to somewhere draw the line and say, okay, where do I put my family ahead of my business, and then say, okay, where do I put myself ahead of everything else, and finding that once a month, just switching off everything on a Sunday and getting out of the house and leaving everyone behind for that 45 minutes of sanity by sitting by the lakeside. That gives me that sense of purpose. I find going out into nature every time I get anxious. You can call me a tree hugger if you want, but every time I get anxious, I need to get out into the nature, walk barefoot, sit just by myself and focus on my breathing, and just every trouble that you come up with, just say breathe in, breathe out, and you take a deep breath and carry on.
Totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. That always helps somehow or the other.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to summarize this entire thing, but to be very honest, a lot of wisdom bombs have been dropped, and I can't really summarize a lot of it. But then, yeah, what both of y'all spoke about, and I totally agree. One of the points was, you know, the power of asking. And I don't think as humans we use it enough, but I have used it in my own life, and I've seen the magic of how it works. The worst, as Sunita ma'am said, is you'll get a no, or someone will maybe give you a skeptical nod, or like, just, and someone will be like, yeah, let's do it. So that is exactly how we built the community here. To be very honest, the entire CUSP community, we started it off from scratch. We had nothing, but now we have this thriving community, and it's growing day by day. And a lot of it, to be very honest, is totally to be credited to the power of asking. Uh, so both of y'all were speaking about perseverance, right? Sunita ma'am was speaking about resilience. So drawing from that, Shomdip, uh, what is an anti-fragile mindset? So there's this book by Nassim Taleb, and he describes that there's fragility, there's robust, and then there's anti-fragile. So fragile is anything, you put external stress and it breaks down, and robust is you put external stress on it, it just stays the same. But anti-fragile, you put external stress on it and it starts growing. So how can we, inculcate this anti-fragile mindset within us? And how important do you think is it for entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs or freelancers, artists, basically anyone who has, decided that I'm going to walk my own path? How important is it for these people to, inculcate this anti-fragility in their lives?
Uh, well, you know, I'm from academic background, so I'll sometimes just stick to those aspects and I'll just show it to you in a different light. That is, if you have faith in yourself, then you are already growing, right? So when some challenge is being thrown at you, you might have to take one or two steps back, right? And you might even feel that you are being fragile, you're breaking down, you're almost breaking down. You don't need to think that I have to be anti-fragile. No, just be a human being, because a human being's basic tendency is to grow. So what you have to do in most cases is survive. If there is a challenge, if there is a challenge, accept it. Even if you feel that you're breaking down, it's okay. That is also human tendency. When you accept that it's okay, I'm breaking down, you can ask for help. You can take a few days off, like going off to for a walk by the lake, sitting there in nature, maybe having a few interaction with people, and then automatically this anti-fragility, if you say, is the tendency to grow that will take over. If you do not get stuck by something, that will definitely take over. So you just don't need to worry about things. As any entrepreneur, as Sunita ma'am was mentioning, that you have to have faith. You just have to have faith, and at some points, okay, so this is a stressful time, and I feel like breaking down. That's okay. That's okay. That doesn't mean I'm fragile. That means I have a new experience. And if I survive this with maybe a little bit of scars, then then my life, as I am alive, I would definitely grow. So that is, I think this anti-fragility is automatized, because that is the basic aspect of life. The only problem could be when you see that, okay, I'm being fragile for maybe say more than 2 weeks. Then you have to think that maybe this time I'm taking a bit too much time than which can have some impact on me and my business and my family. So here, let me ask for help. Let me ask for help from the community. If it's available, fine. If that is not working, then we can go to a professional. And there again, we are just working on growth. With this acceptance, I'm not really going for someone to, who would pull me out of that. No, I'm just going there to know how can I pull myself out of that. So even that is seeking for help, and the life itself, its basic tendency is to grow. So just have faith in life, and then you will automatically be anti-fragile.
If I could add over here, Agnev,
Yes, of course, ma'am.
it is,
Please.
I would draw the analogy of tempering steel.
Okay.
To temper a steel
Yeah.
and get a sword, you
Yeah.
have to you that's where you keep burning it and then cooling it and burning it and cooling it. That tempering process is what I would liken the life of an entrepreneur to be. So for you to come out in a state where you are so resilient and so strong, you will be beaten, you will be hammered, but know that you will also have to cool down. Right? So
Yes.
how do you get a good sword or a good knife? It's just through the process of tempering. It's like
Yes.
that cliche saying that for coal to become diamond, it has to go through tremendous amount of pressure to shine.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same thing in entrepreneur's life. I call the life of an entrepreneur a roller coaster. Okay, so one day you're on a high because you cracked a big sales deal, for example, if it's an IT business or a product selling business, or from a business like mine, I had a great week, so all my supplier bills are paid for. I don't have to worry about that. And the next week is gone down completely. You lost 2 orders. You've not got any new customers coming in. You've got bills mounting, and then suddenly you have a breakdown in your, kitchen. Your equipment has broken down. You have to spend some $5,000 to fix it, right? So it's like one day you're on a big high. I'll give you an example. The day I won the Businesswoman of the Year in November, 5th of November, I was awarded that. Uh, and on the 6th of November, the local news channel was supposed to come to interview me. And they came to interview me at the same time. That was the only slot available for the news channel to come and interview me when my son was supposed to graduate out of year 12.
Okay.
Exactly the same time. So they didn't have a slot before, they didn't have a slot after. They could only fit me in exactly the same time. I was supposed to go to my son's. So we take turns because in the kind of business we are in, one event I will attend, then the other event my husband will attend. Just as leaving for the interview, my mother-in-law had a fall in the house. So I pick her up, I put her down, I give her an ice pack, and I leave. Right? I miss my son's thing. My husband has to go there. But as the life of an entrepreneur who's just been awarded Businesswoman of the Year, you have certain commitments that you kind of have to meet.
Yes.
So your moment of high, the next morning is a moment of low.
Yeah.
Because
totally.
you won the award, but then now that winning that award means that I have to miss out on a very important milestone for my son. And at the same time, there's a family emergency that comes through. And
totally.
the next day you see the interview going on to the 7 o'clock news, and you get 10 more calls from people you don't know of saying, congratulations, you won. You're the first Indian woman to win this award in the community. Yes, you made us so proud. And then again, you're on a high, right? So life is like that. As a business owner also, it's like that. It's like a roller coaster. One day you're doing fabulous. You're on top of the world saying, I've conquered everything. Next day, something else will happen, or the next hour, something will happen where you're like, trying to figure out what to do. And you're like, why did I get myself into something like this? Why am I in this constant state of high and absolute lows and, no normalcy in your life kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Agnew, I would like to say something over here.
Sure.
I think you people could observe the kind of emotions that were being shown in ma'am's face while she was talking about being the businesswoman of the year. That is the happiness. But at the same time, due to that same thing, having to miss the son's graduation, that there is a sadness. There might be some amount of anxiety while having to come out of the house. So and then there might be some degree of anger that why is life throwing so many challenges at the same time? So there is anger, there is fear, there is sadness, there is joy,
and there's guilt.
have to. Yes,
there's guilt.
Yes.
Because you're a bad mom.
I'll not get into guilt because guilt is a secondary emotion. I'm just focusing on primary emotions. So I'll not complicate it in that way. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, see, ultimately, we have to accept. We have to accept that, okay, so these things can get so complex at certain periods of time where I really don't know how to react. And that is kind of overwhelming scenario, but that's life. That's life. And if you are game for life, then I think you will move ahead, and then you will look back at it in a different way, maybe many different ways.
So, right now, while we were talking about, while Sunita ma'am was talking about her experiences, or while you were talking about emotions, there was this general underlying tone of it where we were referring to events outside us, right? Like what is happening in the physical world outside us. And just before that, also, Sunita and sir, you have spoken about how we have to keep ourselves anchored from within. So she has spoken about meditation, and we have used, I don't think we have used the term mindfulness, but we have spoken a lot about it, even in our undertones, right? So, when everything in the outside world is getting so challenging, and we have to keep ourselves anchored from within, and especially with this hustle culture being all around, like, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to have the hustle mindset, right? So, to be very honest, I just want to know from you, sir, because I have, like, I have gone through it, my own experience. I've gone through the hustling culture, and to be very honest, it didn't really work out for me. I think flowing, rather, if I could use the word flow, is a better option for me. So, where do you, sir, place hustling culture, and how do you see the concept of flow? And which one do you think is better, or do you think that there should be a balance between both of these for an entrepreneur?
Again, can you just say a few lines about what is this hustle culture? I'm not very acquainted with this.
Okay. So the hustling culture is basically like, you have to get up in the morning and go, 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 and then just come back and crash at night. And again, next morning you wake
I
up and
got it.
go,
I
go,
got
go.
it.
Yeah.
I got it. So here, if you remember, I just mentioned that rest is essential, isn't it? So if you're thinking from that perspective, being, if you're working so much, if you're there in that hustle culture, then you're just going for a sprint, not for a marathon, as Sunita ma'am
Mm-hmm.
was saying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
marathon is all about the flow. So you have to think, what do you want? Do you want to be a part of a 100-meter stint, like uh, where you just want to be the business? You have one simple target, that is, I have to uh, have this much of thing within this period of time, or do I want to, you know, do something which stays? So if you're looking for something in the short run, I don't think that would really be successful in the context of entrepreneurship. There you're thinking of marathon, and marathon is all about flow. There you have to accept the complexities of your life. You have to accept the fact that in some points you might feel fragile, in some points you might feel like on the top of the world, but somewhere you have to stay anchored. You have to
Anchor.
stay anchored that, okay, ultimately, even when I'm too happy, there's a saying, if you just focus on these words, this too shall pass, then that will keep you grounded. If it's happiness, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
If you're sad, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here, as we're talking about marathon, it's time we take some time off. And this pandemic had also shown us that we can stay at our homes, rediscover ourselves, and there's one thing she is doing, and that's something
There,
great.
there
So,
we can see love,
This is the anchors we
emotion,
have.
the anchors.
and I don't think this is a part of hustle culture. I don't think so.
Not at all, not at all. Yeah.
So this is going with the flow.
Uh, this is
No,
going
so
with the flow totally.
I, I think there is another aspect to this. There again, hustle culture, younger generation. I know of business entrepreneurs whose vision of their own business is setting up a business and selling it.
Right.
Set a
Mhm.
business, bring it to a point, where they're working, they're, they're hustling to be able to sell their business at a profit and get out
Hmm.
and start the next one. that's another style of being an entrepreneur, and nothing wrong with it. uh, there are people like me from a slightly older generation for whom it is about legacy, it is about culture, it is about connecting with roots. And then there's a younger generation where it is all about what's new, what's next, uh, how can I make this venture more profitable than the previous one. Especially the IT, technology-oriented businesses, and they are doing exceptionally well. But at the same time, the question is, what are is everyone's mindset as anchored as old school business people? And both schools of businesses is right. I mean, but you need a different mindset for each type of business that you want to. So if you're out to change the world through education of the masses, then your mindset is that that it's not going to happen overnight. You can't change people's behaviors overnight. It will take a generation probably to change that mindset. But at the same time, you may have a business owner who just wants to crash in on the latest Twitter trend, whatever is hashtagging trend for the next, come up with an app which will solve an immediate problem, and forget about the app. After 6 months, nobody knows where that app is. So both styles of businesses are very, very different, and they come with different mindsets. They're both entrepreneurs in their own right, and nothing wrong with it's not a good or bad or right or wrong over here. It's just that uh, depending on what you are trying to achieve, and that's one thing I don't know if, though I said planning, it's also about having a vision, having a goal.
Yeah.
And that is important because, and I'm not just talking as a business owner. For me, I'm a very goal-oriented person. I'm a very vision-oriented person. Um, I had my vision, where I wanted to do, what I wanted to do, how, when we get there, kind of vision board of even coming to Australia. You know, and then the power of visualization. Uh, if I have to kind of put it, it may sound a little immodest, but this is the reality. When I walked into this award ceremony, and let me talk to you about the award which I won, the ACT Businesswoman of the Year. I've been applying to that. First nomination was 3 years ago. Somebody nominated me. I didn't know about it. They have an application process. You have to write down why you have to present a case as to why you believe you deserve the award. 3 years in a row, I've been knocked back. I didn't even make the shortlist. Okay, so this year I made, in 2020, in the worst possible year for a business person, I made not just the shortlist as a finalist in one category, I made a finalist in 2 categories. Okay, so one was the Small Business Woman of the Year, Small Business of the Year, and Business Woman of the Year. Now, both of them, the questions were similar, but when you approach it as wearing a business owner's hat and a small business mindset, they're two different mindsets, and the questions reflected that.
Yes.
You go into this award ceremony, which is like 600, 700 people gathering there. I went in completely visualizing that there was no way I was not coming back with an award. Don't ask me why. But it was so clear that I'm coming back with the Businesswoman of the Year, not even the Small Business of the Year. I was very clear. That was the power of my visualization, I would say. Because for me, it is that power of belief in myself, that I know what I have achieved in the last 12 months, the resilience that we have shown as a business, and the growth despite all the odds. And not just monetary growth. It is about growing as a business, as a team, as an organization, right? For an entrepreneur to be successful, you're as successful as your weakest member on your team. Unless you're a sole entrepreneur, like, you're just one person and that's it. But if you have a business and you have a team behind you, you're as good as the weakest person. But I knew this year with the 2020, the kind of challenges we faced as a business, and the fact that the team stood up, was resilient, not just me, not just my husband, but the team was there. And we all grew together. That moment of, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. So it's not one individual, because yes, you have the idea, but you have to have a team behind you to execute that. And what is the culture that you have given them? What is the belief system that you've inculcated in them? That makes a lot of difference, right? So goal setting, vision boarding, and visualization. These are three aspects, I would say, not just as a business person, but even as a human being, as an individual. If you want to be happy in your life, you need to know what is your larger purpose? What is it that you're really trying to get at? And it doesn't have to do anything to do with business. It could be that my happiness comes from going out for a cup of coffee once a week with all my girlfriends. That's my source of happiness. I'm giving you an example. It could be that, right? Or it could be that my happiness comes from spending 2 hours with my child doing artwork. And if I have done that, I'm a successful person. I'm a successful human being, because that's what was my vision, my goal, my ambition. So I'm saying these are, things that we can talk about. But I think for a human being, which is all about learning, it's all about growth, some things which help you these are like tools, I would say. I set my goals for the year. First week of January, I know what I would like to achieve. Whether we achieve it or not, that's a secondary issue.
That's
that fact that you take the time to reflect on what you've achieved last year, what you want to achieve this year. And when we vision board, I'm not vision boarding only for my business. I'm vision boarding for my family, for myself. What is the growth I want as a human being this year? So I have, for example, last year, my personal growth objective was that I would like to learn and become an energy healer. Whether I became a successful energy healer or not, but taking the time to learn that, and that self development. So every person will have to do it differently, but you need to have a goal. You have to have a vision, short term, long term, and the marathon of life.
Totally. So I guess we had a very enlightening talk, to be very honest. I really enjoyed the entire talk with you. But just before we can leave, any movies or any books that, because of course, this is a 1 hour talk, right? A 1 hour talk, of course, anyone watching this will take a little or a lot, but a book or a movie may go deeper, right? So any book or movies that you all will like to suggest, so that young entrepreneurs, especially the ones who are aspiring, 16, 17, 18, I don't know, 22 maybe, really young, which book would you suggest, or which movie would you want them to go out and watch? It can be also series, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so I religiously watch The Secret every year, once at least. There's a movie called The Secret, and there's a book by an author called Rhonda Byrne. It became a very, very popular thing about 10 years ago. But I find that it helps me focus every year. In the beginning of the year, once I'll watch that movie, even though I know the movie now, I know the book, I've read the book, uh, that's something which I think I'm, always going back to. But from a business point of view, there's this book by Jack Welch that I read about, oh, wow, I'm talking about 20 years ago. That, that's another making of an entrepreneur, a story about how you develop an organization. So as a business manager, that book inspired me a lot.
I can you please give me the name
Just
again?
trying to look it up on my bookshelf, in fact, right now.
No problem. Sir, can you come in with few book recommendation by the time she comes up with the name?
See, two things I would say. One is a book which anyone can read, and maybe with time, the young persons, they would understand the meaning more and more. That is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It talks about the survival and growth of a person in a concentration camp. When 90% people were dying, this person comes up with new ideas, which starts a new school of thought. So that
Totally.
is survival. Not only,
Logotherapy, right?
yes, logotherapy.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you don't even get the concept of logotherapy, no problem. Just have this idea that a person could survive Holocaust, right? And came up with something of that sort. And then a recent movie that I was watching is The Pursuit of Happiness. Happiness with
Oh, Will
HAPPY.
Smith.
Yes, Will Smith. So there you would see that how this father, he was actually trying, he was evolving while staying connected to the son, and he was working. So you will get the idea, and then you look into these things. If you are game for it, then go ahead with entrepreneurship. Otherwise, maybe okay, something safer can also bring happiness. So, for those who really want to become entrepreneurs, I would suggest this book and this movie.
I love the suggestions. Thank you, thank you. So,
So the
we
book
have
by
a
Jack
quite.
Welch, sorry, the book by Jack Welch is The Winning.
Oh,
And
okay.
there's another book that has, helped me when I was in the darkest moments of my life, feeling lost. It's a book by Ken Robinson called The Element: How to Find Your Passion Changes Everything.
Okay.
So this is
Thank you
another
for
book
that.
which I've read many times. Every time you feel, why am I doing? What am I doing? Uh, what's my purpose? This is a book which helps you to find your passion, not what is in trend out there. It's about finding the answers within yourself.
So we are running out of time. I would really like to do this more, but just before we can, switch this entire webinar off, there's this question by Devaruti Mitro. Losing focus and motivation. How do I address this problem? Now, this question in itself is a huge question, but can we just talk about maybe few practical things, not really diving into motivation and focus, but what are the few practical things that we can do in day-to-day life that will maybe not over 1 week, but over 1 month or 2 months bring, you know, change that we can see.
Mhm.
From a focus and motivation, I think first is for me as a person, it is about my business goals. Uh, it helps you to keep coming back to doing what you want to do, and then celebrating the small victories. You
So
know,
basically, setting a larger vision, and as you're walking, moving forward with that vision.
celebrate the
But
smallest of victories.
yes, yes, yes.
And
So,
in my opinion, as I'm from a clinical background, I'd just like to say one more thing before we end this. That I, on one hand, I'm in a very safe space called being the faculty of university, okay, where I will have my pension and stuff like that. Not only my salary, but even pension. But on the other hand, I deal most of the times with suicidal patients. Okay, so there is a challenge. The challenge is always there, and that actually keeps me going. And currently, after having done the readings through psychology, then through spirituality, now I'm going into trying to understand the social aspects of it. So a little bit of clinical orientation would always be there in my perspective. I would say for 1 week, you can allow yourself to lose focus from your goal and to get your routine disturbed. 1 week, if not in an absolute crisis, you'll be able to manage later on. And then just try to come back to a routine. It would be difficult. And if after 1 week of distraction you're still unable to come back to your routine, then it's serious. But if you are slowly crawling back to your routine, then it's almost like you're back on the runway, and then you'll pick up the pace, then you will fly, and there you'll be working so much that you don't need to think about the routine. But have a week off, then try to crawl back through your routine. If that is not being possible, take help. If that is possible, gradually work on it and you'll be ready to fly.
Yeah, letting go at times, also while letting go, we have this constant bickering at the back of our heads, like, oh, I'm letting go, I'm not doing work. And of course, I guess that comes from the fact that maybe for the last 1 month I have been really productive, but this week suddenly I don't feel productive. And maybe subconsciously we start judging ourselves or being too rough on ourselves, as in, oh, why am I not doing this, not doing that. So I think, yeah, while even taking that time off, we shouldn't be being too tough on ourselves or judging ourselves. Let that week go, take your time, and let's see at the end of the week what happens.
Judging is the exact opposite of being mindful. Mindful
Yeah,
is
yeah.
experiencing, and judging
Hmm.
is being mindless. Don't be mindless.
Exactly,
You'll need a lot of
exactly.
your mind in entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
one
totally.
last thing that I'd like to say over here is, I think especially in the life and times that we live in, we mistake busyness or being busy for, or being in action for progress. They're two different
Yeah.
things. So you can be flat out busy but have made no progress. It's like those mouse on the wheel. You're running, but you're station in the same position. You've not grown, you're not moved forward. So don't if so being focused does not mean you know burning yourself out. You have to find your downtime, but at the same time, when you know what your end objective is, you will lose motivation. You will have a bad week, you will lose motivation. It's natural. It's about how you
Hmm.
bounce back, and that's where your resilience comes in.
Yeah.
So
So, I'm
do
sorry,
not
sorry, ma'am.
don't mistake being busy for making progress. That's one
Hmm.
thing I'd like to leave young entrepreneurs. Just because you're working 16 hours a day doesn't mean you've made progress.
You have to work smart.
You have to work smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Debaruti Mitro, I have no clue where you're from, but please do get in touch with us. Just leave us an email. This is exactly why, we are building this entire community, so that we know that, while growing up, and especially during the pandemic, it has been tough for all of us, not only for you. So get in touch with the community, and if we can help you, we'll be more than glad to help you, honestly. Right? So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir, for
Thank
having this
you.
wonderful conversation with us. And yeah, guys, stay mindful. Let's do this. I know the pandemic's out there, but if we come together, let's make this community happen. A community can always get over anything possible.